I, I think we have most everyone back and settled in their seats. So Catherine, with no further ado, welcome, and we look forward to hearing what you have to tell us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Probably good to get a bit of a stretch. And thank you for the invitation to join you today. My apologies for not being able to travel this week. And I should just comment that you do need to take into consideration the timing of West Coast participants in the future. I think this may be one of my earliest presentations, but I am a morning person, so hopefully I will be on. I want to begin actually by sharing a few slides. So I'm going to make sure the share happens right now. So let's see. Here we go. Let's see what you're seeing. I have no idea. Maybe someone can let me know. And okay, so hopefully you see my slides. Can someone let me know if that's visible to you now?
We can see your slides.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So again, thank you for letting me join you.
You might put it on presentation mode, Kathy.
Let's see what's happening here. It should be. It's on full screen for me.
But down in the bottom right, hit that presentation mode.
Hold on one second here. So this is.
Well, it's usually in the bottom right.
So what are you seeing?
We see the slide plus all of the slide deck on the left.
Oh, you shouldn't be seeing that. Okay, let me. Hold on one second. Yeah, so I'm running a full.
Slideshow? Do you have slideshow? There you go. Click slideshow.
Still there or no?
No. It's all right. You know what? We'll just go on.
Okay. I get my controller back here. So it should be right here, correct? Does someone see my cursor?
Yes. Yes.
Unless
we
it's
can
something
see
different. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, we'll go with this, and hopefully it will be sufficient. So to begin is really, let's think about, I really want to just emphasize, even though we're talking about technologies and platforms for knowledge distribution, who is your learner is the most important question. Certainly one thing we have learned over the years with respect to the development of technologies and platforms and repositories is depending who your user is and where they are across the globe, you really need to start with a user-centered design. So much of my work has been very D-school-like focused or IDEO-focused in thinking about who the learner is and what the opportunities and constraints are of the learner where they are. Certainly what we know from Silicon Valley is lots of devices and platforms and technologies get developed, but they really only operate for and work effectively for a small percentage of the population and therefore are not effective. So as you work in different parts of the globe, I really want to encourage you to think hard about who your learner is. And the second issue that we really need to design for when you think about platforms and technologies is really about the knowledge diffusion. What we know from the academies is that knowledge is often locked up. It is recreated again and again, and there becomes a notion of my content is better than your content as opposed to perhaps building on each other's knowledge and building on other content that might exist. And this was particularly true in the pre-internet days. There was not a way to readily share knowledge. And of course, we do need to work within intellectual property and give attribution to those who are developing the knowledge itself. But if we share, we all gain. And I think particularly as we think about health education, health professionals, I've been in the education space for a long time, we only have limited time and resources. And if we spend those time and resources recreating nuggets of knowledge that have already been created, instead of using that time, limited time and energy to distribute, to teach, to help learners gain knowledge around that content, we really shortchange the system itself. And with that, we often put resources behind walls, we put them behind logins, we put them behind fee structures, and this just creates incredible difficulty to meet the demand, and certainly an incredible difficulty to meet people who don't have the financial resources to be able to engage with either the content or platforms or fee structures that we might create. as I was learning more about this community, I just was really struck about the kind of key elements that you're really looking to foster. And here, with respect to the values and the end goal of what you're seeking to create, it's really about the innovation collaboration. And again, here is where I think when we think about a community engaging together, we think about content being freely distributed, appropriately attributed, but we think about how it can get distributed through the world and how innovation can happen. And part of my work has happened in the space of open educational resources, so I just really wanted to talk with you about that as well, and I think George referred to it earlier in his talk as well. When we think just about the educational resource piece, not the open piece, but the educational resource piece, we talk about teaching, learning, and research materials that are in any medium. It could be digital or otherwise. But when we talk about the open aspect, and this is a particularly focus of the open educational resources aspect, we think about the content that resides in the public domain or under an open license. And, this is an important second point, permits the no-cost access, use, adaptation, and redistribution by others. So when you put open along together with the educational resources, what you get is that you get open is greater than free because it allows greater opportunities and greater advantages both for the communities who need the content of which we create. Just wanted to call out one of the licensing structures. So like we have a C, which is copyright. On the other end of the spectrum, we have public domain where people can readily put their works, the creators can put their works and assets into the public domain. But in between, there's a space that's been created called open licensing, and Creative Commons is one of the licensing structures. This is a global licensing structure, and one of the best ways to explain it is that on the bottom of every Wikipedia page, you'll see a Creative Commons license. And the Creative Commons license lets you know that you can repurpose and remix that content in significant ways. So I did just want to call out this particular license structure, and that there is a global standard across the world for sharing content if you so choose, whether you're an institution or whether you're an individual. I did just want to highlight two platforms that I thought would be interesting for you to learn more about as exemplars for knowledge distribution. This one is called EdCast. It's a fairly young Silicon Valley startup. This is where I met Pam Jeffries. I had joined the startup a few years ago when they were thinking that higher education as well as corporate learning would be the consumers of their end product. And they really thought about knowledge diffusion most readily through mobile, since mobile is critical and mobile is the key element in the market. One thing I want to highlight here, as you think about kind of the way knowledge can be diffused, I kind of highlighted this one slide around the knowledge cloud with kind of circled in red here, is that some of the key elements that are really distributed that are identified as things you really want to focus in on as well. So really you want a very unified discovery of learning resources. You have to think hard about what can be the AI-driven personalized learning. You know, when do you use AI? When do you use curated content? When are individuals involved in that curation, particularly with respect to quality? How do you engage a peer-to-peer learning network so that the cohorts of the people who are together can readily share and learn from each other?
Catherine,
And again, how do you add that? Yeah?
I am so sorry to interrupt, but there's no one here advancing your slides, and while people have copies of your slides, I know you think that we are seeing them, but we are not.
So can you put them up on the screen?
Yeah, they're up on the screen, but it hasn't advanced past who is the learner.
Okay, well, I guess we're seeing technology is not. Well, can someone advance it now?
Okay, yes, now we can now we can advance it for you, I think. Can we? Yes.
Okay.
Can you tell us which slide you're on?
Yeah, so if you go ahead to the one with the phone on it, no, go down, right there, and then to the next slide.
Great, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, no, thank you. So I was just kind of going through this particular slide and talking about the unified discovery of learning resources, how AI can be an added component. The peer-to-peer elements are critical, particularly in a global context, and experiential learning. So if you could advance to the next slide. And really to think about the design thinking to meet where the users they are. I mean, really it's mobile first. Not everyone is able to get to a computer. Not everyone has a computer. Mobile is in the pocket. It's real time. How do we think about apps and widgets that can be used as well? And also, if you kind of think further to the right, how do you think about like an AI coach? So a lot happening with chatbots, ways to support learning when particularly you're hitting scale at volumes that an individual or one organization cannot address, and the demand is incredibly high. And then down the line, certainly we're all thinking about immersive realities, which are incredible, but at this point are still quite expensive, but do provide incredible context for learners in the health industry. So if we go to the next slide, if you scroll down to the bottom, it's an embedded video, and so I want you to go back to the former slide and play that video there. And hopefully you'll have the volume. This is about osmosis. Do you have any volume?
Because let's be honest, we've all got stuff to do. Oh yeah, and all our videos are available under a Creative Commons license, so you're welcome to share them, modify them, or whatever. We're also working closely with Wikipedia's Wiki Project Medicine team, who are putting these videos into Wikipedia articles and translating video subtitles into different languages. The YouTube community can also help us translate subtitles using YouTube's community translation tools. Together, let's make learning medical content exciting and available to everyone.
So this was just a short clip, if I'm back now, which I'll assume I am, about osmosis, which is a knowledge diffusion platform, particularly for the medicine area, and uses often short videos, has over 450 videos in key areas of need and discovery. The creators of this platform come from Khan Academy, and they have really had incredible take-up around the globe. As you can see, lots of views, lots of videos, and really kind of harnessing the power of platforms, video technology to really spread health information around the world. Can you go to the next slide, please? So here I just wanted to call out some of the areas of the professional education that they work in. And again, just kind of an idea that has taken hold. I think hard about the content, think hard about the course design, particularly if they're professionals who actually has time to sit down for long periods and how readily they may need content in the moment. And if you continue to the next slide. One thing I did really want to call out is some principles of open educational practice. So I touched on open educational resources, which is educational content that carries an open license so people can reuse and repurpose it. And as this field of open education has continued to grow, we thought harder and harder about what pedagogical practices mean around content that can be readily shared and collaborated. And I think this goes to the pedagogical aspects of us now being producers, not just consumers of knowledge, how we have to engage readily with the content and materials to really extend our learning and the depth of our learning. And so some of the key elements include collaboration, sharing of information among the community, being connected around the communication about the teaching and learning and sharing some of those lessons, and growing the knowledge and resources. So we're not always relying on outside producers of content or perhaps formal publishers, but that the content can be built and extended again and again. One thing that happens with the Creative Commons or open licenses is that content can be translated into other languages. And you don't have to go back to the original creator and ask for that permission. If the creator has put the license under open licensing, it is allowed to be reproduced and translated as well. Also really thinking hard about the critique for the promotion of scholarship. And one of the things I've certainly learned again and again in my work in open education from around the globe is that if you put high quality content out there, MIT OpenCourseWare being one of the early examples, people will pick up and repurpose and reuse in ways you can't even imagine. So if we were all to sit in this conference room that you're in and I was able to join you, even if we sat there for 5 days, we would not come up with the creative, innovative solutions that people on the ground who need that content will come up with to use that in a way that facilitates the learning and the end objective of which we seek. So I can't say that enough. This kind of innovation that happens is not something that you can plan for. It's a power of the web, and it's the power of the web that we should all be harnessing. So if we'll go to the last slide, please. I just really wanted to identify a few principles of success with technologies, really encourage you to think hard about open source, think hard about platforms and interoperability. Don't allow content to be locked in. Once it's locked in, it's going to have to be created again and again. It's going to have to be paid for again, and those resources and time and expertise can be used in other ways. This goes both for the technology platforms as well as for the content. And make sure, obviously, you're inclusive. Think hard about the student or the learner who's centered in the middle of this objective. Think about them. Think about their situation, their constraints, their opportunities, and be sure to harness the community as well. And if you'll just go to the last slide, I'd just like to thank you for dealing with the technology today. I'm sorry we had some hiccups, and I will stay on as we go into the question and answer period.